What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Comic Breakdown. In this video, we are jumping into Before the Fall. This issue is going to be the Heralds of Apocalypse, issue number 1. This is the issue that you guys have all been waiting for. The looming question in the X-Men comics is, where is Apocalypse? We knew he went to Amenth. We knew that he was with Genesis, but outside that information, it has remained unknown. This comic is here to answer those questions, as we prepare for Genesis to wage her war. Before she does so, she must go to Apocalypse, her husband, her beloved. But before we see their confrontation, we have to get a little bit of a history lesson. A millennia ago, Apocalypse had ruled over the ancient mutant land known as Akkara. He did so with Genesis by his side, and they led the mutants of Amenth against the horde that besieged them. To end this war, Genesis made a deal with the Dark Elder God of Amenth, the god known as Annihilation, donning the Annihilation helm to take control of the Horde and ultimately split Akkara into two parts, what is now known as Krakoa and Arakko. This has separated Genesis and Apocalypse from one another. During the Tournament of Swords, Genesis and Apocalypse, they faced one another yet again on the battlefield, but this time on opposite sides. With Apocalypse able to remove the Annihilation helm from Genesis, she was freed from its influence. With Saturnine able to convert the Annihilation helm into a staff to limit its corrupting influence over Genesis. In the aftermath of this battle, Genesis demanded that Apocalypse return to Amenth as a show of good faith between Krakoa and Arakko. But peace can only last for so long, because the Iraqi people, they are made for war. So make sure you guys have subscribed to the channel, make sure that you like this video, and with that being said, let's dive into this breakdown. Alright guys, so as we dive into this issue, I gotta say, man, X-Men, they are the freaking lines that just keep on giving. Ewing has beautifully wrote this comic. The way that Apocalypse is betrayed, hands down, is some of the best writing that I have seen in recent years. It really helps you understand who he is, who he has become, and who he is going to be. And so our story starts us off in Amenth, with Apocalypse meditating, a young demon coming before him, and this young demon, it wants to know what is strength, referring to him as Apocalypse. He goes on to say that this name is a corrupted name, one that has been mangled by history. At one time, this name did please him. His name had once meant the final destruction, but in his mind, the time for such blunt concepts, that has really ended. The name that he goes by today, a more ancient word with the meaning of revelation, for he is the revelator, and he always has been. But when it comes to the meaning of strength, if the strong survive, then the measure of strength is survival. But survival has no moral component. Heroes die, brave hearts break, paradise is lost. Consider a rock that is battered by 1,000,000 years of ocean. It may be worn down, but it is still whole. Does this make the rock noble? Can a rock be moral? Nonetheless, the rock is there, as was Apocalypse. This is the revelation as it was revealed to Apocalypse. It is not enough to only be there. It is not enough to only be strong. In mid-conversation, this is when the demon has been struck down, done so by the hands of Genesis. Immediately, what he sees is that the family sword has been reforged, and Genesis is the one to carry it. Genesis coming and answering the question of what is strength. In her eyes, strength is surrendering to her, as it always has been. And while Apocalypse's heart knows this, a world is not a lover's heart, and he cannot support the course that she is going down. He cannot walk by his wife's side. Genesis has no intention of trying to force him to do so. She knows that he is the Mage of Mercy, but what she demands of him is to open the way. And Apocalypse is not one to be forced into doing anything, telling her that her armies, these will not persuade him. nor the white sword in his 100, nor his children, nor anything that she holds in her possession. One of those things being the Annihilation Staff. And so, taking one half of that sword, she throws it to Apocalypse. The two of them will duel, but they will also debate, each of them trying to persuade them to their cause, whether it be to stop all of this, or to continue on and press for war. Neither of them will hold back. By the end of this duel, either Genesis or Apocalypse will win. Before the fight gets underway, we are taken a long time ago. Back in the early days of Okara, Iska the Unbeaten bringing the family sword, a gift for Apocalypse, forged by a sword maker whose mother had created the white sword. Apocalypse says that this is an item, an ornament of exquisite beauty, and that's all a sword is in peacetime. It is an ornament, something to be placed on the mantle, something to be looked at but not to be used. And Iska the Unbeaten is bringing this sword the day that his children are being born. Apocalypse, a man that has always sought peace. He has always wanted peace and prosperity for his people. And right now, they are living in a time of peace and prosperity. And while he may be hopeful for the future, his wife Genesis knows the truth. With her children being born, she knows that peace is not the natural condition, that mutant kind itself, they are living weapons. They are made for battle. The question is not about if peace will always be. It is about when war will come. It is inevitable. You cannot stop it. This is something that Genesis knows all too well. But they name their children famine, war, pestilence, and death. As the children begin to grow, Apocalypse says that he's not too fond of their names. Now, he does like the names, but his children are monuments that are built from love, not that of pain, and each name for a concept lost to the past. The way that he sees it, they feed the land and the land feeds them. So he has to ask, where is the famine? Their healers love and play among their people. Where is the pestilence? Their swords are forged in celebration. So where is the war? Where is the death? Genesis reminding him that it's not in the past, that all of this is waiting in the future. It is waiting to strike. At night, Genesis would dream of a sword, one not made for bright days, but to herald in the night. She dreamed of splitting paradise in two, opening the door to annihilation. She dreamed that this was more than a dream, and so she named her children, not in denial, but recognizing what is yet to come, what they must face and what they must overcome. As we see the two clash together, they talk about the endless single moment when the Twilight Sword had cleaved the land in two. Neither of them will forget the scream, but it was not one in fear, nor a howl in pain. It was a scream of rage and despair. Rage that paradise had been sundered. Despair that would always be so. That Apocalypse had been forcibly awoken from his beautiful dream, the dream of peace. That scream, that was the burning of his soul. And he took that raw flame in his hands, and he gifted it to their enemies. And with much loss, they won. And so their enemy came to them, begging with bowl in hand. They wanted a parley. They wanted to make an offer, but this offer they must earn. With the Annihilation helm still on one of these people, we see Genesis jump into action, and Apocalypse recalls every single moment of this. He recalls the Annihilation helm making its offer to Genesis and Genesis alone, but they were never told what it offered, nor Genesis' answer. She had kept this to herself. Genesis believing that the knowledge might have broke Apocalypse, and at the time she needed him whole. But now she believes that maybe it is time for him to learn. The Annihilation Helm had offered to seal the rift, and the only thing she has to do is ask. Not even requiring a please. All Genesis had to do was ask for the rift to be closed. The war would end right here and right now. No further losses, but no further wins. And Genesis truly only having one question. If the war does not end, if the rift remains open, can you win? And this breaks Apocalypse's heart. They had peace. The dream was real. It was in their hands, paid for with blood. They had peace, and Genesis denied it, still believing she was right to do so because they were not made for peace. This is where we see Genesis drive that sword into the chest of Apocalypse. Genesis knows that they were made for war, saying that Apocalypse insults himself by pretending anything else, that he is of Arakko, just as she is, and in the broken land, they fight, and Apocalypse would have fought as well. He agrees that he would have, for their fights, for their justice. Even knowing he would lose, he would have fought, even knowing the cost. But the truth is, what is the cost? Now, everything that Apocalypse has done was to force growth, to force unnecessary change. But Genesis saw the results of Arakko and Krakoa. This is what takes us to Amenth. Just recently, with the summoners being defeated, they kneeled to Genesis and Annihilation. The summoners going on to say that perhaps the outcome would have been different had Tarn the Uncaring lived to see this day. This is the first time that they have gotten news that Tarn the Uncaring was taken out. They talk of the world of Arakko, and the children of Apocalypse have to ask, did the mutants of Earth finally conquer Earth like we have conquered Amenth? But they took a different path. Apocalypse watched the Krakoans, his other children. He saw what they could do. Old death to new life. The children of Apocalypse not happy that he has been keeping secrets, asking what now happens on this world of Arakko. Would we approve of what has been going on? With Apocalypse pausing, he says that their people, they continue to be tested. This is where Mariana Stern comes into play. Astral projecting herself here, she comes to say that Apocalypse is a liar, that their people are not being tested. They have already been tested and they have failed. She shows what has happened. She shows them Uranus. And while Apocalypse tries to let it be known that this is Orcus, that these are old foes in new disguises, Genesis wants to hear this out, with Stern going on to say that it should be impossible to confront an Omega of Arakko and survive. Yet Uranus did so, and so she did what was necessary. She gathered her children home. She took down the summoners. She took down the White Sword. She gathered her forces. She tells Apocalypse that she chose him long ago and she still does to this day. And while he may have been the living Apocalypse to the weak Krakoans, of the two of them, Apocalypse will always be the mage and she will always be the warrior. Asking if he yields, Apocalypse does, saying that she is correct, but he is more than a mage. He is a mutant, and he comes armed, able to control every atom in his body. This is his gift. This is his mutant weapon, pulling those swords out of his body. He lays down his swords, as he did on the plains of Otherworld to save them all. He yields, but on his own terms. But this day, Apocalypse has been persuaded. If the reasons to act differ, that matters less than the necessity for action. Mutant kind will not survive the fire to come without Arakko, and Arakko must thus be tested. It must be tempered in the flame. A millennia of mutant magic, contained in 3 seeds. The Okara Gates. 1 he gives to Genesis. 1 he will keep for himself. And the other, he is to plant here in his own blood. Blood is what the seed must feed on, for mutant blood has always been the cost of mutant power. Genesis asking if he will come with her. He says that this is not a path he can go by. It is not a path he can take any more than it is a path she cannot deny. The only thing he does ask of her is to walk it alone. But she refuses this. Grabbing the Annihilation staff, she says goodbye to her husband. As she walks through the gateway, Apocalypse has his own path to go, his own forces to gather. Their destinies will cross again on the battlefields of Arakko, and his love will test him once more. To face the test is to face the revelation, and the revelation never ends. And that will be the end of this issue. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Man, was that one heck of an issue. Absolutely beautifully written. we see the battle between Apocalypse and Genesis. Not one to the death, not one out of anger, one out of debate. Both of them trying to have the other see their perspective, to try to have them understand why they're doing what they are doing. And while Apocalypse, he wants nothing more than peace. He wants prosperity. He doesn't want to wage war. He doesn't want to have to fight for an eternity. Genesis, on the other hand, she understands that they must. That fighting, that war is in their blood. They are born in it. They bathe in it. It is who they are and what they are. And Apocalypse might have been able to persuade her had Uranus not destroyed or decimated most of the circle, the Great Ring, Tarn the Uncaring, all of these Omega levels being taken off the board. Genesis cannot allow this to continue on. Not that she is coming to wipe out Arakko, she is coming to test them. She needs to ensure that they can survive, that they can live on, that they are worthy to be mutants, to be of Amenth, to be of Arakko, to be of Krakoa, because the fall of X is coming. It is just on the horizon, and if mutant kind is not prepared, they will fall. Genesis is coming to ensure that that doesn't happen, that when the fall begins, mutant kind will be able to stand. They will be able to fight. They will be able to win. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know your theories. If you would like to get completely caught up on everything that has been going on with Before the Fall, be sure to check out the link in my description as well as the top of this video. It will get you completely caught up on everything going on with this series. If you would like to support the channel, you can always do so by joining the channel membership. Much like Patreon, having multiple different tiers, from $1 to $50, from loyalty badges to comics every single month. Not only are you helping out the channel tremendously, but you are getting tons of perks in the process. If you are unable to do that, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like this video, hit that notification bell, and with that being said, until the next breakdown.